Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, flutes in the chat. And I need to see plenty of flutes in the chat because it is time for everybody's favorite segment turn show. And it is called Dave Meltzer's Dumb Moment of the Week. And it's featuring Brian Alvarez. Speaking of bias again, so this is another gotcha for Dave. So this is Jedi Goodman. He's known in the MMA community, right? If you're watching UFC, some of his tweets, I think he's one of those guys where they often will show tweets from his account like that, just whatever. Per Wrestling Observer newsletter, based on Google Trends, the UFC. So Dave uses Google Trends for UFC and MMA. Why? Because there's just UFC and there's UFC's the best show, and you just have to admit that. And there's no competitor, and he has no vested interest, right? Scott Coker or one of these other guys isn't phoning Dave Meltzer on the phone. Incoming call, Tony Khan. He's not getting calls like that there's no vested interest, and it's all a shoot. So they're all being physical. So it's not like he can say, oh, the MMA over here is better, right? That's how you know he's a mark and just likes when guys can do moves in pro wrestling. Because it's it's not a shoot. So what makes this better? Well, I mean, it's pre-programmed. Well, it's pro wrestling. It's all pre-programmed. That's the whole point. That's why you train it. You train MMA so you can learn to get punched in the face. And you can, your stamina's up, your cardio's up. You can eat leg kicks, your body, you're ready, your mind, body, spirit, all that pro wrestling. You're rehearsing a dance. It's like in the movie Ready to Rumble, right? It's like Jimmy King when they're in the trailer and he's like, it's a dance, right? You understand? It's a dance, right? Crown him. I will rule you. Dave, when it comes to MMA, though, he has no vested interest in protecting any of these companies. So he uses Google Trends for UFC. But he won't use that for AEW. He just goes, all the pay-per-views are through the roof, even when the Google Trends are way down in comparison. So when people see me or Switchblade pull Google Trends and, Dave does the same thing. Your daddy Dave does the same thing. And I don't ever pull Google Trends personally. Other people just post and I just repost it because I find that interesting. But ain't nobody got time for that. No, I was joking. Based on Google Trends, the UFC 318 show with Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway was the biggest show of the year. The second biggest could have been 319, which is Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. UFC 320 with Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev was down 30% from UFC 319. 321 with Aspinall versus Cyril Gane and Mackenzie Dern versus Jan Jaroba was down 45% from the 319 numbers. It was who gives a Dave using Google Trends for MMA, but won't look at that data at all when it comes to AEW. The topic, though, of TNA has come up, and we've been comparing, TNA to... Well, first, let's go through Dave, just defending Max and WBD and how they categorize AEW. Not defending them, rather, but it is them because they own a chunk of AEW. So, in a way... Again, Dave is too stupid for his own good. He just keeps throwing people under the bus while thinking he's putting over another company. And this was the day after last show, I believe. He just had a complete meltdown trying to defend AEW and the ratings and all of this. WBD might sell and, closing bids, or by the end of the year, they're expecting a sale, or Zaslav's looking to get one done, and all this coming out. And it's not looking good for Wavy Davy. It's not looking good for AEW. It isn't. Okay. And it's because they listen to Dave and they don't listen to who've been saying Eric Bischoff, who are dude, you should try this or that, or you're headed in the wrong direction. This is the problem, is the fight used to be hey, you're headed in the wrong direction. You're headed in the wrong direction. And then it's oh my God, this is shit. This is shit. This is shit. And now it's just okay, so this is cooked any minute now. What the? This is all going to blow up in Dave's face. And here's him just sort of defending and arguing and not really understanding what he's talking about and just coping. It's just massive cope overall. And then he copes over Chris Jericho and what he had to say about TNA and all the comparisons to TNA. And what's funny is that with shows like this and with me being able to sort of help and shift and influence maybe some narrative out there. I would like to say that I would like to pat myself on the back for at least helping push the narrative of like AEW TNA, because this is the whole point. Like, we want people like Dave comparing the two and like being dismissive, but the fact he's bringing it up and Jericho brings it up and he has to dismiss it. Oh no, not NWA and TNA, not just TNA, but all these other shows. He's bringing them up and like, oh well, that's no, who cares about NWA and fuck TNA and whatever. And now it's forcing them to have the conversation about these other companies versus AEW and shit. And that's when it's game over on their end, because it's like, I don't know. To me, that's the funniest outcome, is just seeing Dave fail. I don't care about if AEW's around forever. I just have no faith in it as long as Tony Khan's at the helm and he's phoning Dave on the phone. That happened like a couple weeks ago. We can't let that go. Like, Tony's phoning Dave, and Tone was probably listening live to Dave at that moment too. No, I don't know if they go live, but either way though, this person here, Christian Daniel, says the mention of Max without data is delusional. Facts. Truth be told. Dave Meltzer says it's common sense. Streaming viewership skews much younger than television. Max confirmed AEW is one of the top sports on the station. So that was back in May. And then Meltzer says this to Dolly the Sheep, who says, read the roommate and understand what is being said. Dave is just presuming numbers on Max with nothing to base it on apart from common sense. Is this the same common sense Max uses when showing the top sports, etc.? Dave goes, Max has already stated AEW gets among the biggest numbers in sports, Brian. That's in February, okay? Powerful King JJ says, me laughing at all the sickos in the face that believed 500,000 watched on Max, because apparently TNT Sports reported that sports has not made a notable impact on the platform. Well done, sickos. You believed all of the dirt sheets. So Dave takes this personally. The funniest part about this is that he takes this personally. And Dave goes, WBD does not consider pro wrestling a sport. Oh, really?
Stupid idiot.
And this is why you're a fucking fraud. And this is why people don't take you seriously, Dave. This is why people don't take you seriously. It's common sense. Streaming viewership skews much younger. Max has already stated AEW gets among the biggest numbers in sports. Now, the problem with this, Dave, is that you were saying this in 2025, okay? You said it's considered a sport in 2025. Now, as we exposed here on this show, and we covered it on the live show, actually, so a different show, PWT live show every Wednesday and Saturday, Dave Meltzer, he knows that in 2021, HBO Max, or what was it called then? Just Max, whatever. They didn't consider AEW in the sports category anymore. Right? This was Switchblade mentioned this, and Dave knows this. So this is like a double bluff we caught him in right here. So early on, when they were like AEW, I think I have Switchblade's thing bookmarked here. I wish I did. I think we covered it on the show, so I took it out, but on PWT live show, that is. I should have re-bookmarked it. But basically, Dave knows that they don't consider it a sport. But when it was convenient for him earlier this year, what the fuck was he saying? Okay? That they consider it a sport. Even though he knows that it's not that. And then when it convenes him, he goes, it's not a sport. WBD does not consider pro wrestling a sport. It is listed as entertainment, even if put on the HBO site as sports. If you don't know this, it shows you pay no attention since it's covered every single week, Brian. Then why the fuck were you saying this in February, in May, that it's considered the highest in sports? Why are you saying that then? Why are you using it when it's convenient for you, Dave? Is it because you're a fucking liar and a shill?
Liar!
So I should have never played as many based Meltzer flutes. And even when he has base takes, I'm just simply applying conspiratorial motives towards any notion he has that's positive in a way that I find fishy when it, unless he's condescending people. Like you just can't ever give him an inch, he takes a mile. You know what I mean? You play one Meltzer flute and it's like, no, there's ulterior motives. Clearly he was doing that because he knew he was about to have a meltdown, And so he says, this is related. And this is the other problem too. So Dave will put up a million tweets saying it's considered a sport. It's considered a sport. So then when Dave, what's his excuse for this? That he found this out later than everyone, or that he's a good goddamn liar? That's all it could be. One of those two. Or he's a legitimate fucking lunatic, Delulu, losing his fucking mind, having Alzheimer's, fucking forgetting things, Like there's no other explanation for this. Yeah, I just would love to see what he'd have to say about this, but he'll put out a million tweets claiming shit, and then he'll say, if you don't read the Observer every week, though, then you won't know that I address this and explain this all, why when I was wrong, I was actually right. And it's like, no, but you're spurging on Twitter, though. That's the problem. So go on Twitter and then say, here's the correction to this tweet that I made where I was being a condescending prick to this guy and took this guy saying dirt sheets, a blanket term. I took it and applied it to myself directly because I'm a fucking mark. So Dave Meltzer says this is related to TNT Sports Properties, which AEW stopped being considered when it was moved to TBS. None of this matters. Tribalist people don't want to deal in facts or reality. So he's saying when AEW stopped being on TNT and was moved to TBS, that's when this happened. Then how come in February and in May you're using this as a talking point? Like we all don't have these fucking tweets, dude. Dave, you're busted.
Liar!
Okay?
Tell us what you know, you goddamn liar!
And so other people had responses to this series of tweets here. So Nicolo Piccolo goes, and now another episode of Only Murders on the timeline. And so he just buries Dave here and just goes off. Zaslav downplays live sports as WBD reports weak results. So again, like here's BJ Bethel. TNT Sports likely has a separate streaming app coming that will be under the Discovery name post-spin. AEW, which they consider a quasi-crossover, is considered entertainment under the WBD umbrella and is HBO Max. Wah, wah. Oh, man. So there's other responses here. So Nicolo Piccolo says, Dave, AEW has moved out of sports in 2021, and Max confirmed AEW is one of the top sports. Can't both be true. That's not on anyone for not knowing the wrestling news. That's on you for arguing with your own timeline. And that's the thing, man. He can't remember all of his own bullshit because he fucking bullshits constantly. So you can never keep up with your own bullshit. Honest Abe once said that, right? You can never keep up with your own bullshit. And yeah, people just call it Switchblades like I thought AEW wasn't sports. Like everybody pulled this card and responded to it. So Dave Meltzer goes, well, this guy, Wild Blood, says, Dave, then you have to make a phone call to WBD because AEW is still under sports for both TNT and HBO Max at this very moment. Okay? And then Dave goes, we addressed that sometime back. Anyway, here you go. TNT Sports includes broadcast rights for sports like the NHL, NCAA Division I men's basketball, and the college football playoff, Brian, along with digital properties such as Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, and Hitchacero. The Umbrella brand also covers various international leagues and events in Europe, including partnerships with with the Premier League, UEFA, and the UFC. And then Nicolo Piccolo's like, Dave, you're contradicting your own reporting again. A few months ago, you literally tweeted that wrestling was one of the biggest sports on Max. TNT isn't a locked vault of leagues. Wrestling is programmed live, monetized like a sport. So when you tweet that wrestling isn't under TNT Sports, you're not clarifying anything. Yeah, because he's just a con artist. It's just disgusting at this point. Like, it's just gross. The squabbling and the groveling, man. And so Dave Meltzer goes, just for the record, AEW was listed under sports shows until the end of 2021. At that point, it was designated as entertainment. We've talked about that hundreds of times. If you don't know, that's on you for not knowing the wrestling news. Does he talk about it hundreds of times? That's like a crazy ass thing to claim. Hundreds of times that he's talked about that. I highly doubt it, because why this year then was he using it as a talking point to try and win arguments against fucking sickos on Twitter? Could it be that you're a goddamn shill? So speaking of shilling, man, Meltzer talks about the ratings a little bit here when it comes to Dynamite, and he's like, Dynamite viewership. Look at this headliner. Whoever wrote this, you're a dipshit. 18 to 49 demo sees week to week increase. And it's like, what, dude? It did a record low on not Halloween. When was it? It was like the Wednesday before this would be for, right? Or would that be the Wednesday after? Yeah, I think it would be the one after. So it's like, it's not I don't know. Just the wording of it. He wouldn't word it that way for WWE, to do the what about even TNA, because he can't help but shit all over TNA. And dude, he's shaking in his boots because Jericho brought up TNA and said that it looked cooler than AEW. And so Dave's just doom and glooming about it. And that's why I don't trust Dave. I think Jericho's going to swerve everyone and stay in goddamn AEW, because Dave's too confident that he's leaving. But the 18 to 49 demo sees week to week increase. And it's like, in what way? Because the World Series is over, whatever the fuck. And you're like, what about year over year, bro? It's terrible. That number's terrible. Speaking of too little, too late, Dave Meltzer talks about the big data plus panel, and how he talks a little bit about the WBD deal. And he says this is the biggest story of the year. Meanwhile, he's not covering it. He's not covering it accurately. He's not covering it fairly. He's not going as in depth as people like Switchblade or Nicolo Piccolo do just on Twitter when they read these articles and actually dissect this shit. And if Dave were, he would understand that this shit's blowing up in his face and just proved him wrong entirely about all the shit he's been talking forever. So here's just a quick clip on him. This is the biggest story of the year. But yet he'll spend more time talking about, and he'll take more clips of him talking about deliberating between Triple H or Tony Khan for Booker of the Year, like it's even up for discussion.
It's how Nielsen is doing this now, and that's not going to change. I mean, really, when it comes to the wrestling business, that's one of the biggest business stories of the year. And for long term, it's just huge, because this is a business that relies on that revenue more than anything else, far more than anything else.
So then you're wrong. And when BJ Bethel lies about the numbers, so it does no help to lie about that, Dave, and pretend, it's going to hurt them huge. But I mean, there's millions watching on Max. Like, what do you say then? All the metrics are trending downwards over the years, slowly. Down. WWE has 1 week where they sell 4,000 tickets. I mean, the peak period's over. You guys are going to hear Dave say that. The peak period's over for WWE. He's going to say that in another clip I got for you. The peak is done. What the fuck? SmackDown's back selling 10,000 tickets. The holiday tour's clearing 6,000 tickets and shit for some of these shows, more than AEW's next pay-per-view. Why even put these logos next to each other, dude? One is an indie that's on television right now.
So, the one good thing is they signed those deals last year, because if the way the deals had come, if these deals would have been being negotiated in 2 months instead of a year ago, it would hurt WWE as well.
You fucking clown. I mean, AEW would be fucked, right? It's a good thing, because why? Because their ratings are way down, and it's not a hot product, and I don't even like calling it a hot product. I don't like that. It's just not good all around. And meanwhile, we just get told by people that WWE's evil, and we look at them and we're like, they're not really doing anything evil. And then we get told how great AEW is and it's the best wrestling. And if you're a smart fan, then you love AEW. And,
poor people don't like AEW.
And it's like, then shut the fuck up. Just say this. Don't bring up WWE. Don't put WWE's logo here. Just talk about how AEW, their ratings are fucked and their TV, they could still get canceled off TV. It's fucking TV, bro. What happens if Netflix buys WBD and then they own that 5% of AEW? Or how the fuck is that going to work? Right? Like, what happens there? What do you think's going to happen? Like, Dave is clueless, man.
But it would greatly hurt AEW. It's how
And again, he's just like, oh, it's a good thing those deals were negotiated then. Yeah, you're goddamn right they were. And so speaking of WWE, as I mentioned before, Dave is like, the peak of WWE's over. Triple H can't book. And he's just pushing this narrative because at the end of the year, he wants to give Tony Khan Booker of the Year again. He's been waiting to do it. When has Tony Khan won Booker of the Year? We know in Dave's heart and soul, it's every year. What years did Tony Khan win Wrestling Observer Booker of the Year award? And again, we're asking Grok, so if it fucks up, then 2020, 2021, and 2022. I mean, arguably, sure, maybe like the first 2 years, but again, like how much of that is Cody Rhodes and shit? So he three-peated. And then Dave is now wants to push this narrative, and even the Observer readers understand it's Triple H, because according to Dave, it's just about drawing money, Brian, at the end of the day. Pro wrestling business is all about drawing money. But then meanwhile, they're not drawing any money. They're losing tons of money. Remember Dave was like, oh, all that money coming in every week. It's like, now he doesn't say that shit. Why? Because that shit blew up in his face and they're getting fucking sued and he's a dummy and they don't have money. They're losing fucking money every week. And he's sitting there pretending that they're making money every single week and they're fucking not. And it's blowing up in their face, in all of their faces. Just like Dave doesn't say, including the max numbers, because he knows that his card's about to get pulled on that shit as WBD becomes more transparent with Nielsen data, etc. And Dave also discredited all this other people were like, this number reported whatever. And he's like, oh, well, I can't remember the names of these things. That's a PS Vista. They use sonar to track. I can't remember the names of these companies, right? But Dave's like discrediting certain, and he's like, go with Nielsen. Meanwhile, Nielsen and WBD are like working together, and over the next year, they're going to be more transparent. That shit's all going to blow up in his fucking face. And he knows it. But with so what he's trying to do is go back to his old games, okay? Because you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And Dave is just going back to, well, we can just lie in our magazine and say that there's no way Triple H was Booker of the Year and Tony Khan was Booker of the Year. That's how we'll make this the better company again. And so he's saying WWE's peak is over. Why? Because Halloween happened and the World Series happened? And they sold a couple bad houses for SmackDown, which weren't even really that bad because they were like 4,000 to 6,000 people. And now it's turning right around instantly. Or are you just bullshitting, Dave?
The peak is over, without a doubt. A lot of the peak
is
in
over.
The sense of this year, I think.
Peak. What the fuck does that even mean? So when did AEW's peak end? Why are you saying it's the best wrestling ever? It's funny, too, because Dave's like, well, the thing that people say is the best isn't always the best thing. It doesn't sell the most. And it's like, okay, but you say this is the worst. And then you say that other thing's the best and it's selling the least. So why can't that apply? The thing that people say isn't the best sells the least. You know what I mean? Stop your fucking mental gymnastics. Just shoot straight.
I think it might have
Shark
stopped
brain
a little
monster
earlier if it wasn't for Cena. And if Cena's really gone, and I think he probably is, next year, I don't expect, it's going to be instant sellouts unless you're talking about, SummerSlam and Mania and all them. They'll do well for years.
So again, it's like, so Raw's still selling every show, 13,000, 12,000 every show, 16,000 every Raw, dude. Cena's dates are all announced. So they're not, because when Cena's gone, I mean, So all these other Raws that are doing 13,000 people and Post Malone's in the front row and there's no Cena, what about those shows? It just doesn't even make sense. This is cope, bro.
Years.
Don't make me play the fucking song again.
But the rank and file stuff, I think it's going to be a little bit down, and you know, AEW is still the same. I mean, it's not. There's no sign of
AEW is still the same,
either,
but just like 100% less people showing up to every show. They're getting outdrawn by like 14 or like pardon me, like 12,000 people. Raw will do like 14K. Dynamite will do like 2K. Same with AEW. He just always has to compare the two. No, it's TNA and AEW, and that's it.
Numbers. So it's just that. And then, you know, the TV numbers, the Monday Raw, which went against football in the World Series, was the second lowest that they've ever done. Collision was tied the lowest that they've ever done in 18 to 49s. SmackDown was the lowest that they've ever done on USA in across the board in pretty much everywhere in every category. Dynamite did a low number against the World Series. NXT on Tuesday was not against the World Series and still did a low number, although you could say maybe that's election day. And it
Dave said that there was a good movie on the Free Flow channel when it came to AEW one time. But election day, I mean, it was probably that. If it was AEW, you'd be like, everyone was watching the election, Brian. Holy shit, man. Restore the feeling in your scalp,
although you could say
buddy.
maybe that's election day. And it probably was, honestly. That's probably fair to say. So there's still that reason, but these numbers are still, in the last week, are very low.
Yeah, especially for AEW.
The peak is over.
And they were not that bad for WWE in comparison, and then they just bounced right back. Meanwhile, AEW hasn't bounced back to 600K. SmackDown had 200K more people tuned back in. Glaze Meltzer needs to address that there was no 200K that magically reappeared for AEW. And that's why we play flutes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Dave Meltzer Dumb Moment of the Week. We cooked them. We burnt them up. It's going down. 75% off coming soon.